Welcome to the Sports Lounge, the 90th edition. The Ebola has been solved. Mr. Traxler and Mr. Hildebrand back on the show. We appreciate your time.
Yep, no problem. I'm violating my containment order because I don't want to be stuck in my house anymore.
You're going rogue.
Going rogue.
Well, we got Mr. Traxler back here, and as always, Coach Stacken joins us on the program here. The World Series wrapped up, a very, very good World Series. 3-2 win. Kansas City can't get it done. They fall in 7 games at home. Madison Bumgarner, the big story where he goes, pitches 5 innings out of the bullpen, pitches the last 5 innings, seals the deal. Didn't have a chance of scoring on him there if you're a center fielder, doesn't F it up in the 9th inning, which almost happened. 52 2/3 innings the entire postseason, gave up 6 goddamn runs. A terrific performance for Mr. Bumgarner. We start with Mr. Kansas City himself. Your thoughts, Mr. Traxler? No hat today. I'm assuming that's a Kansas City zip-up right there. Bumgarner did you in. Did you assume whenever the situation would arise, when he would get into the game, that was lights out Kansas City?
I would say that I felt like he had about 5 innings of pitching whenever he came in, and that's exactly what he ended up having. There was a little bit of me that thought, well, maybe the short rest would make a difference in his ineffectiveness. And in that very first inning, he did get into a little bit of a bind, but I think once he settled in, he looked like the unstoppable pitcher that he really was for the whole playoffs. And in Kansas City, that was the one pitcher they couldn't crack the whole series. San Francisco wisely used Bumgarner when it counted, and for Kansas City to come, with 90 feet away from tying Game 7, and for this whole story to get as far as it got, it felt like it was just kind of wrong that Kansas City didn't win. But to me, Bumgarner was just as good a story as Kansas City was in these playoffs. And I didn't feel like we would be robbed either way. And like you mentioned, the center fielder who muffed that ball, even if Alex Gordon scores, that's not going to count on Bumgarner. So he was saved at his 6 runs allowed for the whole playoffs.
Mr. Stacken, what were your thoughts? A very exciting Game 7. Well, this World Series, historically, I think it will be a little maybe I don't know what to call it, overanalyzed or maybe propped up on a pedestal too high because of Bumgarner, because of the final game. When really in the games 2 through 6, you had that 10-0 game, and in Game 6 you had a San Francisco blowout earlier in the series. Do you think people will remember this series greater than it actually was, or was it that great?
I think you hit the nail right on the head that with the number of blowouts that we saw in this World Series, I don't think it should be considered among one of the greats. I think we saw the greatest pitching performance of all time, perhaps by Madison Bumgarner, and what he did the entire postseason, but especially coming in Game 7, off of 2 days rest, going 5 innings strong. He single-handedly won the World Series for the San Francisco Giants. They did get some timely hitting from the Sad Panda, or the Pablo Sandoval. So that was good, but overall, I think we should focus more on Bumgarner's performance and achievement and marvel at that versus the 7-game World Series. It's good for baseball that it went to a Game 7, but ultimately this wasn't the greatest World Series. It's all about Madison Bumgarner, in my opinion.
How about that Game 7 for being a great Game 7? I believe only the second one here in the last 10 or 12 years. How did that one stack up as far as Game 7s, whether it's World Series or not? Because it had some drama early, had dominant pitching late. The drama was there in the 9th inning. I felt like that Game 7 was as good as any Game 7 we've seen recently.
And I think I agree with you. I think the Game 7, the momentum turned in the 3rd inning when Panic made that outstanding defensive play to help turn the double play, wrecked a Royal rally there, and the Royals just never couldn't recover, and their confidence level was just shattered once Bumgarner entered the game. They just didn't have much of a chance. But yeah, overall, it's a very good Game 7, one of the best ones we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, it sure seemed to be the best. I mean, best Game 7 since 2001, maybe. I can't think of a better single Game 7 since then.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the best I remember since 2001, and I mean, on your point earlier, I would agree that the series as a whole, I don't know if it was as good as some others, but Game 7 was good, and it seems like people always remember Game 7 more than anything else. So it's got that going for it, and also Bumgarner doing his best Sandy Koufax or Bob Gibson impression. So kudos to the Giants.
A 52 2/3 innings, had an ERA of 1.03 for the entire playoffs. Had 21 innings total in that World Series, and he gave up 1 run and 9 hits in the World Series to Kansas City. How do you compare this to anything else? We've seen the ERAs that start with 0, and how that compares to the pitchers 50, 60, 100 years ago. How do you compare that to other sports? Whether it's a quarterback performance, you can always add Michael Jordan and championship performances that he's had. But as far as what you've seen over the last 20 years, if you want to say it's the best, you can make that argument. But how do you quantify what Madison Bumgarner single-handedly, more so in a sport of baseball, what he did here, not only in this playoffs but in the World Series?
I know it was more than 20 years ago, but the first thing I thought of was when Phil Simms won like 24-27 or whatever in the Super Bowl to beat the Broncos. I mean, if you need something more recent than that, I mean, I would say maybe like when Christian Laettner and Duke beat Kentucky and he went like 10-10 or 11 or whatever from the floor and hit the game-winning shot. I would say, I mean, those are the two that would jump into my head.
Does the fact that this one, those that you mentioned were single game performances, does the fact that this was, a series and this happened multiple times over the course of a week, does this just enhance that even more? Or you knew when he came in, outside of an error, you just weren't not going to score on the guy?
I mean, I think it adds something to it. I mean, it's just you know when a guy's on and when he's hot that you just can't stop him. And I mean, I would say that's what well, it's the other end because he's pitching, so he's playing defense, but that they just couldn't do anything and they couldn't hit him ever. And I mean, it seems there's kind of a point where after a while it goes from this guy's really good to this guy's doing something special. And I think it kind of hit that point, and that's fun to see in any sport when you get to that point where someone's doing something historic.
I would say if you're looking for a comparison to another sport, and it's different because with a pitcher he's only going every in this World Series, Bumgarner pitched 3 times, 4 times?
Yeah, 2 starts, and then he had the Game 7 out of the bullpen.
And so he pitched 6 times the whole playoffs, 7 maybe?
Yeah, six times, 6 starts the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
He was basically, defense aside, he was single-handedly responsible for 3 of those 4 wins.
Yeah. Best comparison I can make, position-wise, player-wise, is a goaltender in hockey in the playoffs, because they're directly responsible for saving runs, saving goals. And in 2012, Jonathan Quick for the Kings was very good. I just look up his numbers. 1.41 goals allowed over 20 games in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, it's hard to compare because ERA, goals allowed.
Basically the same thing, though.
But basically the same. It's about as close as we have in the 4 major sports. That's one of the best goaltending performances, single playoffs. I would say that this, they would be somewhat equal when we're looking for a comparative. But I mean, obviously, Bumgarner, when you look at the last 30, 40 years of baseball, there's been nobody like this, and you do have to go back to the Koufaxes and the real legendary pitching performances of the playoffs.
I would say Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson, 2001, what they did, comparable to kind of, taking a team in Arizona that, those were the two guys. The reason why they won is because of those two guys, and the reason why the Giants won is because of Madison Bumgarner. Game 7, big people, big crowd show up to Game 7, 23.5 million, the second most watched baseball game in the last 10 years since we got into a ratings discussion. So when Game 7 happens, people are definitely going to tune in. Baseball season as a whole, again, not a lot of offense. Pitching was this the perfect way to end the season with a dominant pitcher? Considering this is the way things seem to be going in baseball now, pitching is what's going to happen.
Well, I don't remember if it was this season or last season or when it was, but it seems like there was a Tom Verducci article that boasted year of the pitcher.
There was a couple, about a month ago or so, right before the playoffs.
Well, I know Sports Illustrated has gone to that well a couple times in the last 3 years, but obviously to have a true dominant pitcher, we were all talking about Kershaw coming into the playoffs. John Lester was somebody that a lot of people were looking at before this playoff started. You can go right down the list of a lot of guys who have been pretty dominant this season, and so for Bumgarner to really show up and deliver. And the one point I want to make about Bumgarner is that he got better as the playoffs went on. I didn't think he'd come in and pitch as well as he did progressively throughout the playoffs, but he did. He just kept getting better. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
It has to do with how bad Kansas City is offensively. They scored some runs during the playoffs, but a dominant pitcher can really shut them down. Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true. I just felt like Kansas City's offense wasn't going to be as hot as it was in the World Series because there was a longer layoff, and they were just really red hot against the Angels and the Orioles, and I just didn't see that lasting. So, it seemed like that was probably the right team for Bumgarner to go against. If he goes against a more powerful offensive team, it'd be a little different. Mr. Stacken, is this a sustainable run for Kansas City? Can they win 85 games a year? Can they be competitive, or is this run it? Was this as high
No,
as they're going to get for a while?
No, I think they can keep doing it. They're probably not going to re-sign James Shields, but as good of a pitcher as he was for them in the regular season, he didn't show up in the playoffs. So I think they can get some other guys in the farm system or reach out to some other free agents. I think Kansas City now becomes more of a player in free agency, that free agents will look at that bullpen situation, look at some of the young guys they have with Eric Hosmer and Renzo Canary, those other guys like that, Billy Butler. The AL Central is fairly wide open. The Minnesota Twins, they're going to be better next year. Chicago White Sox, I don't really buy into them. The Tigers will start to decline. The Indians, they're kind of hit and miss. I really think that Kansas City can keep this level of success. They've risen each of the last 2 or 3 years to get to this point, and I don't think they're going to decline. I think this will be at least a couple of years that you'll see this.
I don't think this is going to be sustainable. I don't see them making the playoffs here again. They barely made it to begin with. I don't see them. Maybe I like this era of baseball now suits them. This non-power era of baseball suits a team like Kansas City. I think it goes back to the 80s where you had a wide variety of teams make a run. You just didn't have a handful of teams at the top. Anybody else think Kansas City can keep this up? Because I don't think they can. I think Kansas City will be competitive. I think that they'll be in the division race. They'll be in the playoff talk. But as this year was, I hope people realize that the playoff thing was really a flash in the pan, where they got a lot of things to go right. They were clearly riding a lot of momentum. But I get all these alerts on my iPad from MLB.com, and I saw that Billy Butler is a free agent. I guess that kind of surprises me. I don't know. This is his worst year by far this year. Yeah, I don't know
if he's planning on leaving, or if he's just testing the waters and is going to come back, or
they decline. I believe they declined an option on him.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, that was not something I was expecting. I think that Kansas City showed they have a really good bullpen. I think that's helpful for them. A bullpen is probably the one thing that you can keep together, as opposed to your lineup or your rotation. And I think that Kansas City's pitching will probably get better, but that offense, like you said, suits this era. But there's not a ton there. They have some good players, some nice pieces. I think they'll be competitive, but I think as far as being a World Series contender, this was it.
The way this Game 7 was played, and the way they played throughout the playoffs, and the way they used their bullpen, I don't think I just don't think they will do that during the year. Game 7 I thought was tremendous with the starters taking them out second, third inning. If this was a normal game, I mean, they're obviously not taking them out that early, giving up only 2 runs, but because of the importance of the game, they went to the bullpen early. And it was effective. You had a couple guys pitch 2-3 innings. You had Jeremy Affeldt bridge the gap there from Tim Hudson to Bumgarner. He pitched tremendous. He got the win. You had Herrera and Davis and Holland put up some zeros. So you had those guys do what they've done all postseason long. I really loved how they used the bullpen, especially in Game 7. This isn't going to happen, I know. But would teams be more... I mean, is there any way to have a slow transition here and have teams use a guy like a Herrera? He throws 95 or 100 miles per hour because he's in the game for only a short period of time, so he can empty his gas tank. But is there any reason why you can't have a guy, which is what I would like to see, come in, throw 3 innings, especially in the American League? You don't have to hit for a batter. Come in a close game, pitch 3 innings. They won't be available the next couple of days, but use them more effectively than just 10, 12 pitches at a time, which, as you know, drives me fucking crazy. So,
I mean, I don't know if I don't want to. I want to make sure that your criticism is not misguided here. You don't have a problem with pitchers throwing 1 inning at a time, do you?
Well, if a guy,
My issue is the guys who come in for, 1 batter at a time or 2 batters at a time. I think if you're able to, or not pitching past 1 inning, I think you should throw 2 innings at a time.
I think so as well.
I just think that sometimes they bring in somebody in for 1 batter, and I get the lefty on lefty thing. I think that's that's a situational thing. I think you need a guy like that. You should have one of those in your pen, but. I just think you should stretch the arms out a little bit. So I would agree with you on that point.
Yeah.
I just think they can probably use these relievers a little bit more aggressively as far as length of time that they're in the game, if you're willing to sort of spread things around.
Especially in a case where they're effective. If they're effective, 1, 2, 3, boom, in 10, 12 pitches, send his ass out there for the 8th or the 9th. The role of closers. Don't save your closer. Put him in there before, as we've discussed many times. So it's not going to change. I don't know why. It won't. But I think you saw an example of what would happen if they did that. And in the small sample size, it was very effective. So,
well, I think you need a team. I don't know what team that would be, but you need a team that's willing to take that on, and that they're going to pay their best pitcher, whatever it is. They're going to pay him that best reliever rate, and they're going to use him whenever they need him. And I just think that you're going to need some sort of team that's going to be willing to do that. And right now, we don't have anything like that. We don't have anybody who's willing to take those risks.
I did like Kansas City could be that team if they just do what you did in the playoffs here, do that in the regular season. I mean, it's especially with your guys. I know you're playing 8, 9, 10 games in a row sometimes, and you don't have the luxury of 2 games and a day off. But I think you could very, very well make it work. What were your thoughts on Rick Wild or Rick Wilde, the Chevy man? At the end of the game, presenting the pickup truck to Mr. Bumgarner. This guy struggled very badly. I had to go to the cue card a couple times. This was highly entertaining because the Giants were fairly subdued for a World Series champion. This guy's a big star, I think. This guy's got superstar written all over his goddamn face.
I missed it because I don't like Aaron Andrews in any sort of award presentation scenario to begin with, and then I just the trophy presentation is so commercialized like it was here. I just don't care, and I'm starting to think he might have done it on purpose because I know that Chevy has taken advantage of this. They've used it in commercials. They've used it online. They've used it. I'm starting to wonder if he didn't do it on purpose because some of the stuff that they've done, they've come up with very quickly, if nothing else. And it was obviously a creative way to do things if that's the case.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is true. I had heard somewhere that the truck that they gave him had actually been recalled, so they have to give him a new one or something.
Well, that would be a GM thing to do.
Let's just do the whole ceremony over again. I want to see that crap again because that was terrible. That was Mike Goldberg-like technology and stuff. I mean, he's reading off the cards and sweating like a mother at the end of October. That was fun to see and a good cap to the season. As you know, we like to keep it local in the lounge whenever we can. And the local 9 has hired a new manager, soon to be announced. Paul Molitor has been the choice. The favorite going in, the favorite coming out. Your thoughts on Paul Molitor, new Minnesota Twins manager?
It's going to be something if next week he's not the manager.
Well, get it announced, get it done. Everybody knows.
I would hope that he will be the manager because they haven't come out and denied it or anything. So
Sources,
of course. Paul Molitor, I think, very wisely played his cards here because, he got in the system, and I think he had I've seen it quoted that he had a very clear understanding that he would have an opportunity at this job at some point because he knows that the Twins have a propensity to promote within, and I don't know. You look at some of these other teams; they've had very good success with former players who have gone on to manage. Right or wrong, I think Don Mattingly's a fine manager. Mike Matheny's been very good for the Cardinals. Brad Ausmus, it's a little too early to say there in Detroit, but there's Mike Redmond has done very well in Miami. So I think that's good. I think you have somebody who will certainly be able to relate to the players. He's very close to 60. I think 58 maybe, somewhere in that range, which isn't a huge deal. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I hope that he'll be able to resonate with the players, and especially some of the guys that the Twins need to get a little bit more out of. And is he willing to get on a Mr. Mauer when he's not playing well? We'll have to see. I think Gardy was a player's manager, but almost to a fault. So we'll see how things unfold here.
As far as the former players go, I'd like to see the 2002 team come back completely as coaches for this new team. As we've discussed, you fill it out with the Radkes and all those guys. A.J. Pierzynski, I think he should probably call it a career. Does A.J. Pierzynski fit into the plans here? What do we got?
I don't know.
Known to be better at arguing with an umpire than Pierzynski.
Send him out. He can be a bench coach.
I don't know if he fits as a coach right now, but I think at some point he certainly should be considered.
Do you think a former Twins player will be one of these? Because you got everybody's open here: hitting coach, pitching coach. Any smoke? You see any smoke coming? You smell it? You see it? Can you taste it?
I would. It's up to Minkiewicz, but I would think that he would maybe get in the mix here. I don't know.
He could be a guy.
If he wants to be a major league manager, he's going to have to move up from Fort Myers at some point.
Be better off being on the staff in the majors than the guy in high A?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So anything you're looking forward to free agency-wise? You give a shit about the free agents? Big baseball stuff coming up.
The hot stove is not fully fired up yet.
Who's responsible for turning that thing on? Is it any one of us? Stacken, have you turned it on yet?
No, I haven't. I have to go get some wood.
He's not paying
attention.
attention.
Wood. Yeah, get some wood.
Yeah. I got to get the hot stove going. In order to get it hot, I need some firewood. I need to go chop some wood later.
Tim Kirkshin is fully responsible for getting the hot stove going.
May I suggest possibly updating your stove if you're still using wood?
I live out in the woods in a cabin, so I'm going rustic here.
Very good. With the white walls, you painted your walls white. I like it. It's a good look.
Yes. Yep.
Well done.
And somehow I have a TV. So I have a rustic stove, but yet I have television here. So I don't really know what the hell is going on.
Little known fact, Stacken actually bought Ted Kaczynski's old cabin, and that's where he's living.
Ooh.
That's a scoop. That's a scoop here in the lounge.
I've known you for a long time, Stack, and did not know that. So.
I have a lot of skeletons in my closet, Kriens, so, this is just one of them.
You can confirm or deny this right now. I mean, this is live.
I'm not a captain.
You're the Unabomber.
You're not a captain.
I said I don't have a cabin.
Oh, you don't have a cabin. Well, that's very disappointing. You make some.
It's,
Not the Unabomber, though.
Well, I'm not the Unabomber either.
That doesn't sound very convincing.
We'll put our top men. We'll put Shane Coop on this.
Do I have the profile of someone like that? I mean, look at this.
Put your goddamn hands up to the goddamn thing here. Put them up.
Boom.
Put them up. Put them up to my hands.
Oh, my.
We're going to put Shane Coop, one of our top men, on this, and he'll get back to us post-haste, maybe even pre-haste. Has anybody ever gotten back to you pre-haste?
No.
It's always post-haste.
Oh, we need to offer him our T-Wolves tickets and a few beers at the game, and he'll investigate anything.
You're our business manager. Barbecue done. Shane Coop, you're up next.
Yeah.
Talk to Charlie Hildebrand. He'll get you all straightened out here. As far as the Twins need a left fielder, Twins need some starting pitching. That's what I need, and I want a bullpen guy. Not very many holes. Offense played well. You got your manager. Let's spend some goddamn money. Let's get that up to $90 million. Let's get some quality players in there. Let's finish near 500. So baseball, we'll wrap it up. We'll put it in the closet, and we'll brush it off here. In a few weeks, which I'm sure somebody will sign a ridiculous $200 million contract, some 32-year-old, and we can discuss this for the seventh time. So baseball, a great season, counting down the days. So had college football, not done, just over half done. A good week. Next week, a great week as well. As usual, when Auburn plays a big game, they deliver. More times than not, they play the most entertaining game of the week, a 35-31 win on the road versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss, less than 10 days after, not one, not two, not three, not four of the Loungers picked them to make the playoff. They have now lost two in a row. Before we get into this, similar to the UCLA at the beginning of the season, what went into your decision to say, Ole Miss, I will pick them for my midseason playoff? Mr. Stacken.
Well, I was looking at this defense. I thought that they would do pretty well. I think Bo Wallace is a good quarterback, and I just thought it was their time. Why not go with the Grove? And clearly, I was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry and offended by what.
You're
I'm sorry I offended anyone.
You're offended.
I am offended by their play. That guy breaking his ankle can't hang on to the ball for a touchdown. That hurts.
Literally,
and most of all, most of all, I'm sorry to anyone in Ole Miss who I may have offended in recent weeks.
Well, good. Anybody else want to defend Ole Miss?
Well, I mean, there's not much I can't. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was just going to say that I like Stacken. I really like that defense. Thought they'd play well. I know they had some injury. I thought Dr. Bo had finally paid all his malpractice premiums, but unfortunately, it turned out a few of those checks bounced. So he's back in trouble with the law again. And it's not looking good for Ole Miss. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
It doesn't look good
now. Like I said before, like stabbing a knife through your heart losses that I've seen in a long time.
I have it. You know, the committee on Tuesday put them in what they were the third team, the fourth team in the playoff there, and I have a real problem. I really enjoy this playoff ranking system. It's a dozen people in a room discussing this instead of all these media members and coaches just blindly filling out their ballot every Saturday night, Sunday morning, and just getting it done. They have no cares about it. So this new playoff ranking system is tremendous. It'll be interesting to see how far Ole Miss falls, because they goddamn shouldn't fall down to 12 in the AP and 13 in the coaches when you lose by 3 points on the road versus LSU, and you lose by 4 points. You literally lose by, 6 inches? That ball breaks the plane, your knee is down before you break your ankle. You win that game more times than not, and you stay in the top 5. So a terrible decision here to drop them to 12. But really, it doesn't matter. Those polls don't matter anymore, which I like. It's all about this college football playoff ranking system. And so you can be 25th in the AP poll. Who gives a shit? If you're in the top 5 in the college football playoff, you're sitting pretty goddamn good. So all these other polls, go blow yourself.
Can I just say, if Ole Miss falls from 4 to 12, or 5 to 12, wherever they were at, Georgia should go from 11 to completely unranked for the next 2 weeks after that garbage performance against Florida yesterday.
Yeah, Georgia's at 17.
That's
my gut reaction is Ole Miss will fall to like 8 or 9, maybe 10. They're not going to fall out of the top 10 though.
I still give Ole Miss a chance. If they run the table, they'll beat a possible number 1 team in the country in Mississippi State. That's a pretty good win. Outside of that, they have a good chance of winning out. Probably, barring a tiebreaker and barring Mississippi State losing another game, they're not going to make the title game, which hurts them. I'm rooting for a lot of 2-loss teams in the West to be tied, but Ole Miss, a lot of people thought this was an eliminator as far as Auburn and Ole Miss is concerned. But a lot of teams in front of Ole Miss, they're going to lose. And we're looking at those 2-loss teams, and they're the top 2-loss team right now. You have, 15 teams either undefeated. 15 teams either undefeated or have 1 loss. We'll knock at least 3 more of those out here coming up next week. Auburn, hell of a schedule. Another big win for them. They're another team I look at. If they lose two games, I still think they're in the discussion, since they have 2 very good losses. What is it about Auburn? Every time they play a big game, it's entertaining. They're my favorite team now. When they're on, I gotta watch them, because they always play close games. It always comes down to the last 2 minutes.
I don't know. It must be something that Gus Malzahn's drinking at those Waffle Houses after the post-game win. Something fueling this. I mean, I don't know. They should have lost 2 or 3 of these games by now. I mean, most of those are more from last year than this year. But I agree. I mean, if it's within 8 points and there's 4 minutes left and you're playing Auburn, you're essentially like, well, we're not going to win this game. Somehow they're going to find a way to beat us.
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining, and Auburn, they got Georgia here in a couple weeks, and Alabama yet again. So, does anybody buy into my theory here? Auburn, Ole Miss, even with 2 losses, should they be in the discussion? Will they be in the discussion here?
I think you should.
It's a cop-out answer. I mean, I would say maybe. It depends what everybody else does the rest of the way. I mean, I don't think a 2-loss Auburn or Ole Miss team is going to get in over a 1-loss Oregon or TCU team. But I mean, the way it almost always plays out is a lot of these 1-loss teams are going to lose. So it would not surprise me if there end up being like 2-loss teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, Charlie basically said what I was going to say. I mean, there's all these 1-loss teams are going to have to come down to 2 losses, and I would agree that of the 2-loss teams right now, Ole Miss has the best resume. But if you look at it, I mean, I don't know if it. You look at some of those teams in the SEC West. There's going to be teams with 2 losses. I don't know if Auburn's going to be one of those teams. I don't know if Alabama's going to be one of those teams.
It's going to be one of those 2.
Yeah, and you have Mississippi State, which I mean, I just do not believe in that team anymore. They just did not play well enough against Arkansas at home. I realize that Arkansas is not the worst team in the SEC West, even though they have not won a conference game in a year and a half. I just think that they're showing the signs of a team that's going to lose a couple times. I think Ole Miss will beat them at the end of the year for sure. And I just think you look at even the Big Ten. I mean, if whoever they have has one loss, I think you put them in ahead of a two-loss SEC team. But that will be the eternal debate if it gets to that point. So we'll see what happens.
Also worth noting on Mississippi State that they did not look good last week against Kentucky either. So back-to-back weeks against both Kentucky and Arkansas that they have not. They're both Kentucky and Florida State have not looked up to snuff the last couple of weeks.
So maybe they just save their best game for the teams that matter. When did they go to Tuscaloosa? A couple weeks?
Bad way to live.
2 weeks. 2 weeks at Alabama. Don't see that turning out well for the Bulldogs. Don't see it.
Because Alabama's going to be ticked because they're going to lose at LSU this next week here.
We'll see. We'll see if they can win 9-6 this time instead of losing 9-6. It'll be fun to watch.
Don't let it come down to a field goal if you're Alabama.
Yeah, no kidding. Hildebrand, we like the upsets. College football historian here. Tickle my funny bone for about 10 seconds here. Mississippi State, they host UT Martin from the OVC. Tickle my funny bone here for about 10 seconds.
About
what's your point?
UT Martin beats Mississippi State.
What would happen? I mean, if that were to happen, I mean, what type of a shitstorm blizzard would happen? I mean, would the world end? Would this be widespread?
Well, I mean, of recent stuff, I suppose in some ways it would be sort of like when Appalachian State beat Michigan, but instead of Michigan being like, well, you know, we're Michigan men, and we're going to try to rebound and do better, and we're going to try our hardest like good old Bo Schembechler would. In Mississippi State, they'll probably just start setting things on fire. They'll turn into Morgantown South.
The way
but they won't be doing it because they're happy. Obviously, they'll be doing it out of like protest and spite, and they'll be angry.
Charlie's Michigan man impression is one of my favorite things that's developed out of this season. So I'm glad Michigan's been terrible, if for no other reason than that.
If I could play this out here, Auburn.
Play us out. What does that mean?
I have no idea. What does that mean? We'll do it live, but the play. What, he's gonna sing a song? Play us out.
Got to cut off his new album.
A cut. If I just playing this through my head here, Auburn wins at Alabama. That gives Alabama 2 losses. Mississippi State, we don't like them apparently. They lose at Alabama and at Ole Miss. That gives them 2 losses. Ole Miss, they went out. They beat Mississippi State at the end of the year. They have 2 losses. Where do we? Auburn, maybe they run the table here. They go 4-1. Maybe they lose at Georgia. Maybe they have 2 losses. Is it that unreasonable? Think you could have 3-4 teams here tied at 2 losses and have all beaten each other, and God knows what the fuck the tiebreaker is for that?
I believe it used to be it was the BCS rankings. Obviously, since it's not the BCS
Do
anymore.
it up. Let's get it going.
I think I read that it's really weird. It's like they take everyone and they look at the combined record of the teams from the other division that they played.
Oh.
I believe that's what I read. So essentially, you would have all these SEC West powerhouse teams like hoping and praying that the hapless East teams they slaughtered start winning late in the year, so they could win. You know, what ends up being like the 19th tiebreaker when you get to that point.
We've talked about the Pac-12. If Oregon loses, they're going to have trouble.
Before we get off the SEC, can I just share one more thing?
2 more things, yes.
I didn't share this in the chat, but Florida still has a realistic chance of winning their division.
Go to hell.
Yeah. So if they finish 5-3, obviously Missouri would have to finish 5-3 as well.
They lost to Missouri though.
But if there's some sort of tiebreaker, it's a similar tiebreaker to what Charlie was mentioning.
Why is that the tiebreaker? Head-to-head's not a tiebreaker?
Well, it's if when they all beat each other head-to-head, like the 2008 Big 12 South, that if because I think since Florida beat Georgia, Georgia beat Missouri, and Missouri beat Florida.
Well, what if it's
so
just...
if they all have the same record.
Right, there'll be a three-way tie,
It
yeah.
has to be... If it's a two-way tie, that doesn't matter. It's head-to-head.
Right,
Yeah, if it's
right.
two-way, then it's head-to-head.
Florida has to root for a more complex tie. But it's actually a fairly realistic possibility that they could.
No.
If Tennessee beats Missouri or Missouri loses to somebody, it could happen, which is exciting.
The way things have played out for Florida this year, would anything be funnier than people starting to get on the Muschamp's going to save his job, he's going to get things done, and then Florida loses to Vanderbilt by 2 touchdowns to ice Muschamp?
I mean, I hope they win the division because you're not going to be able to fire them under that instance, and that'd be great.
Well, no, you can still fire them.
No, you can't.
Who was it? Didn't Rick Neuheisel get fired before the Pac-12 championship game? Isn't that how that went down?
I don't remember if it was before or after.
He was going to get fired at the end of the year.
Well, they were 6-6 though, right?
They were 6-6 team. You had the sanctions. They got their ass. They were competitive with Oregon for a half.
And they only made it because USC was on probation. Right. USC
Florida, if they make the title game, isn't going to be 6-6. They're going to be 8-4. I mean, Florida has very winnable games on the rest of their schedule.
They got to play South Carolina though. How are they going to beat them?
Oh, they'll beat them.
Oh, look at this guy.
Look at Spur. I mean, Spurrier's having some trouble here beating teams that they should be taking care of. They probably should have beaten. They should have beaten Tennessee last night, and that didn't happen.
What happened to Spurrier's shiftiness? Is he no longer shifty?
Not shifty. I mean, his defense is terrible. That's his problem.
He's got bad feet. I mean, he's old. They don't move as well anymore. He's not as shifty.
You gotta get a new hip or something. And Missouri? I like Missouri.
And since Kriens was doing the what if Tennessee Martin upsets Mississippi State, I don't expect this to happen, but just humor me for a second. What happens if somehow Will Muschamp circles the wagons and they beat Florida State in the last game of the regular season?
If that's at Florida, I give them a 20% chance. Since that's at FSU, I see that being a bloodbath, a pool full of plasma. Is what I see it.
Muschamp, last coach to beat Mark Richt and Jimbo Fisher.
Any resemblance between Marcus Traxler and Mr. Muschamp? More so than maybe Mr. Stacken and Mr. Muschamp. Any takers?
I like.
I mean, I don't know. I can't tell.
I think he's
Traxler's too stable to be combustible.
Okay, I want to try something here. I want to try and play this Missouri clip from 2 weeks ago. See if I can get this goddamn thing going here. Mr. Stacken, can you see this here? Is this working? Can you see it?
I can see a YouTube clip. Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens here.
No audio here.
No audio?
Yep.
Nope.
Tell me what's happening.
No audio? Can anybody else hear the audio?
No, I can't hear it either. You're going to have to watch it and then just
here we go.
re-say what's being said.
Okay, hold on here. Okay, see if this some bitch works here now. You ready?
Television, everyone.
Ready? Here we go. Can you hear that?
No.
God damn it. Anyways, we're talking about Missouri, and if you recall, Stacken, you said no. You said no to Missouri. You said they're garbage. I'm not disputing that, but I still think they win the East.
Well, I think they do. Well, they certainly have a much better shot now after Georgia laid an egg yesterday.
I looked at Georgia and Auburn. I thought Auburn would win that. That's where I thought their loss would come from. I did not think it would come versus Florida. So there you go.
If I remember right, I think that's assuming. I mean, this is an assumption, but assuming that Auburn beats Georgia, I think Missouri could lose to Texas A&M and they still win the East now.
They played. They lost to Georgia. So yeah, Georgia have one more loss with Georgia. That would benefit Missouri quite a lot. The other big game, which it didn't live up to my expectations, the rain may have had something to do with it. TCU coming from behind versus West Virginia. I believe West Virginia turned the ball over 7 times, and TCU scored twice. Just trying to give them the game, give them great field position, couldn't take advantage of it. Finally comes back in the fourth quarter, kicked the game-winning field goal. TCU, my national championship pick, wins that big game versus West Virginia. Now they got to go on the road again to Kansas State. TCU, offensively, they really struggled at times. I don't know if you want to credit the weather for that. But what did you think of TCU West Virginia? Lots of turnovers early, and not a very well-played game. But in the end, TCU, they win by 1.
West Virginia, they urinated down their own leg as far as who will win that game. We had 4 turnovers, and they only needed 3 points, 1 more field goal on any of those drives, and they win. Especially all the opportunities they had early in the game. They were up 13-0, and they had the ball after that kind of weird onside kick thing, and that felt like a true opportunity missed. And so I don't know what happened, but TCU's got a good test this week against Kansas State, and we all think that after that point, TCU's got a pretty good chance, should they win, to be a very good playoff contender. You look at their schedule right now; they've got a very good resume.
They do. They're 7th in the playoff ranking now. They will jump Ole Miss. They'll be no lower than 6th. Alabama and Auburn, one of them will lose, so they'll jump up to 5th. And at that point, you're hoping for one more team to drop, or maybe your wins are impressive enough to where you jump a team. So right now, TCU in very, very good position. TCU, Kansas State, how do you see that one going? Mr. Hildebrand.
I do this a few too many times. Right now, I'm feeling the Kansas State upset. I can't say definitively I'm going to pick that. I don't know. There's something about the Bill Snyder team this year that just the second you think, oh, well, this team's better, they go out and they play good old-fashioned, boring, fundamental defense and sound tackling and find a way to capitalize off your mistakes. So right now I'm giving the early edge to Kansas State, but
correction. This is at TCU. This is at TCU. So I think that helps.
TCU is without their best wide receiver against West Virginia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if they have him, they'll beat Kansas State.
Okay. Dotson. Since it's at home, that I think that helps. And I as you know, I like TCU to win the whole goddamn thing. But really a matchup here at Kansas State. Even if they win this, they got to go at West Virginia here a couple of Thursdays from now. So their tough games are still ahead of them. While TCU, as has been mentioned, the rivalry versus Texas aside, put that on the back burner of the baseball hot stove. I think this is your season right here. And TCU can be the first team to punch their ticket to the first ever playoff with a win at home versus Bill Snyder and his Champs Sports Bowl jacket from 2010. So I'm going to run down the games.
A month and a half ago, who thought TCU and Kansas State would be a playoff elimination game in November? I certainly did not.
We did not have that on the agenda. 60 Minutes, by the way, going to be preempted very, very late tonight. So that's not good for anybody. Run down the... Plug it in. Push the buttons. You have Kansas State at TCU. You have Baylor at Oklahoma. Baylor needs that one. Notre Dame heads west to Arizona State. Alabama, LSU. Ohio State, Michigan State, the de facto Big Ten title game. Oregon at Utah. Is this where Oregon slips up again? Mr. Hildebrand, I'm giving you one game. The government oversight has gone too much. They're only giving you one of those games to watch. Which game are you picking?
Well, I'm biased. I'm going to watch the Big Ten one because I think that's who Nebraska's going to play in the Big Ten title game. But not including that one, I'd probably go Kansas State TCU. I think that's going to be a really good game.
Mr. Traxler, if one game for you to pick.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State, TCU is going to be good. I'm going to go a little off the radar if I can. I would, if there's one game.
He's picking Minnesota, Iowa. He's picking Minnesota, Iowa.
I can watch the Gophers go 6-6. That is a big game as far as the lounge is concerned.
It is a big game, yes. Notre Dame at Arizona State is a game I am most intrigued in. Notre Dame, if we just compare their schedule to where it was 2 weeks ago, they still have to play Louisville, which is a home game. But Louisville.
I'm not concerned with Louisville. They shit themselves. They shit themselves bad.
I mean, that still feels. I think they could definitely give Notre Dame a game. I think this will be a great test for Arizona State. I'm just really intrigued by that game. I think it'll be a great game. And, I mean, Ohio State, Michigan State is just going to be a...
I think that's going to be a beatdown. I think that's going to be a 3-4 touchdown, take him out the woodshed, get Peterson ready, get the whip out, you're finished.
Who's going to win?
Michigan State's going to beat the shit out of Ohio State, I feel.
You think so?
I think it's a 3-touchdown game.
I don't think it's going to be that easy.
Beat down city.
Wow.
Beat down city. Anybody else think Michigan State's going to beat the shit out of the Buckeyes? Nobody's going.
Since Michigan State's got double digits, but
I don't think it's.
But I also thought that Louisville was going to hold on and beat Florida State. So
goddamn Florida State. Yeah, Louisville, you lost at Virginia, you lost at Clemson. You blew a 2-3 touchdown lead versus Florida State. That's disappointing as all hell. So, yeah, I mean, this is a big weekend as far as those games where you look at one, this is the toughest game remaining for quite a few teams, Notre Dame included, and Arizona State, they're still in the mix. Were you surprised? Notre Dame 10th in the rankings. They really haven't beaten anybody. They don't have a great win to show for it. Were you surprised that they were so low, given coming off that Florida State game?
I mean, honestly, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, the difference between like 8 and 10, I don't think is huge as of right now, or 10 and 12. If they're still if they only have one loss and they're 10 3 weeks from now, I'd be surprised. I mean, they lost to Florida State, which is kind of their best win of the year, is losing close because Stanford has just gone in the tank. And I think, really, the Notre Dame fans should be ecstatic that Arizona State, held on and beat Utah. Because now they're going to be their best chance for a big win the rest of the year. And I think Louisville, if they beat them, would be an okay win, but it's not going to be, they're not going to say, oh, well, we need to put Notre Dame in front of TCU because Notre Dame beat Louisville. I mean, it's not that kind of win, nor is USC anymore. But they're good enough wins that they mean something. But, to me, it comes down to Arizona State this weekend. If they don't beat Arizona State, they're out. And Arizona State controls their own destiny right now, I think, still. They could still get in and make a run here if they get a few wins and beat Oregon in the Pac-12 title game.
Arizona State does not play Oregon. So if they do play them, they will play them in the likely Big 12 title game or Pac-12 title game there with a win at Arizona at the end of the year. So Arizona State is still alive there. Oregon, I think they lose at Utah. I think they're done.
Body blow theory.
Elevation theory.
Okay, that's part of it.
Utah, better than expected. They won a lot of close games. Finally lost a close game.
Poor camera angle theory. There's poor camera angles at the Utah stadium when you watch on TV. It's like they're playing at Soldier Field. No, too low.
Too low.
The cameras are like on the 20-yard lines, it seems. So you're always at an angle.
Bad angles.
Bad angles. That game's a Fox game. We'll see it all. We'll see it all next week. It'll be terrible.
I think Oregon's going to beat Utah. I think it's going to be really close, too, though. I think it's going to be more like the Oregon-Stanford games the last couple of years, where it's going to be more low-scoring. I don't think Oregon's going to put up 40 and run away from them.
I think the one thing to consider about Utah is that there's been times this season, last night especially, I didn't stay up till the end, but their offense has been a tire fire at times this season.
But their
and that's
defense,
a problem.
their defense.
Their defense is great, but if they just cannot afford to get in a track meet with Oregon because they're just not going to win that. And so you don't want to be in a position where you're having to match scores.
I would say
otherwise Oregon's going to beat you.
I would say when we looked at Oregon and when they've lost in the past 5 years, it's been games that have been under 30 points. They haven't lost. 35-31 they haven't lost. 42-38 they've lost games in the 20s and the 30s. That's when they lose. So I think if when Oregon plays poorly, it's not really because their offense or because their defense can't stop. It's because their offense can't put up 35 points for whatever reason.
I will say that this Utah team fits the profile of an Oregon upsetter over the last few years. I mean, this seems like a team that can beat Oregon.
Yeah, Utah seems more like Stanford this year than Stanford does.
Stanford. Speaking of tire fire offenses, Stanford.
David Shaw. Harbaugh's guys are gone. Does he get any blame on this? Because that's a pretty shit team. Does anything go to him and say, hey, you've been living off the morals of Bo Schembechler too much? Maybe is he a Michigan man? David Shaw, is he a Michigan man?
Yeah, no. That's an interesting scenario.
Yeah. Would you get off the ship with Stanford?
David Shaw. I mean, that was a team that did make the Rose Bowl last year, so I think that counts for something. And Stanford is a team that still, I think, is recruiting pretty well. David would be the guy to ask on that, but I think Stanford is not a team that's going to be. If you would, people would consider this to be a down year. I don't think Stanford's going to be down very long, especially in that division. They're in that North Division. You got Oregon. We think Washington might be better, but there's definitely some room there for Stanford to bounce back.
I
remember at the beginning of the year when we thought the North was way, way better, and now the Pac-12 South looks like the SEC West light, essentially.
Yeah.
We did.
And by the way, if you want to look for a hot coaching guy, because right now, if you had to ask me, I think the Florida, Michigan jobs are going to be open. Kyle Whittingham at Utah. I don't know if Florida hires another Utah coach, but I think Whittingham. There's going to be some teams that are going to call him.
Makes sense. Makes sense there. Make the jump up. East Carolina lost. They're not going to the Peach Bowl. This we know for sure. Marshall. I mean, nobody wants them in there because they haven't played anybody. Colorado State could be a team. Marshall, anything standing in Marshall's way here? Any reason why they're not going to go?
Ebola is the only thing standing in Marshall's way.
Don't go to Texas.
Rakeem Cato deserves to go to the
Papa
playoff
John's
bowl.
He deserves to go to the Papa John's Bowl.
No. No, he deserves. He's Peach Bowl worthy. The rest of that team doesn't deserve to go.
I kind of, after East Carolina lost yesterday, I kind of wrapped my head around the idea of, I think Marshall's going to get slaughtered in one of these games like Hawaii did in 2007 against Georgia. And I thought, it'd be really nice if West Virginia wins the Big 12 and we could have a Marshall West Virginia in-state.
Oh, my God.
Great.
It'd be in one of those games, but they lost, so I don't think that's going to happen now.
Fuck you, West
Virginia.
Thanks a lot, West Virginia.
How about Alabama against their former coach, Jim McElwain, in Colorado State?
Anybody
I don't think that'd be a very pretty game either.
It wouldn't be, but
it would be interesting. I mean, it would at least be something.
These bowls always align a storyline. So,
how much are you looking forward to a Colorado State Nevada game, CBS, early in December, like at 10:30 at night? However, they got that in their TV contract. They're geniuses. We saw it last year. A game that nobody gave a shit about, a game that nobody watched. But boy, Colorado State, Nevada, CBS, late night. Who's throwing the pajama party for that one?
Hey, if it's part of the pick, I'll end up watching it.
Let's get it done.
I don't know how exactly that happened, but it was that was great work by the Mountain West. Between that and getting their basketball conference championship game on CBS on that Saturday at the end of the year, those are the only two things the Mountain West has done right in recent time.
What do we think? Ole Miss, Marshall. Ole Miss. Any interest?
I think Ole Miss would win handily, but you never know. I mean, I didn't think Boise State had beat Oklahoma in 2006. I guess I don't give the underdogs enough love a lot of the time.
Last year, you had UCF win. They had basically a quarterback and nothing else.
Because they had a great quarterback. You know that Traxler, Blake Bortles, is a tremendous quarterback. You know how good he is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be an SEC team, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss. They're going to get the shit knocked out of them.
Hey, Cato said in an interview on Game Day yesterday that he thinks they can go toe-to-toe with an SEC team. So.
Well, they'll have the chance. They'll have the chance, and we'll get to see it. And if they do, we'll say a tip of the hat to Mr. Cato. But Cato going to get knocked the fuck out. TKO is what that's going to be called. So how do you do there? So
Marshall's Little Mac and the SEC team they play in the bowl game will be like Mike Tyson on the NES Mike Tyson's Punch-Out game.
Get your chin straps on. It's going to be a tough one. Lots of college football games. They kind of messed up the schedule here. You probably got the three best games happening around the same time. You've got Michigan State, Ohio State. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff here. You got Kansas State, TCU at 6:30. You got Alabama, LSU at 7. The Big Ten game at 7. So you got probably the three best games of the weekend happening at the same time. So
I didn't get to throw my my game that I'm watching next week.
Is it LSU, Alabama? First 1 to 3 wins.
You are correct.
Thank you. Why? Why does that still get you hard after?
Yep. Well, it doesn't get me hard. Let's be
not
frank
anymore.
with this here.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Oh, anyway. There might be something else, but anyway.
They have a pill for that, but.
Oh, I don't need a pill.
They have a pill to get rid of boners?
No. Oh, they have a pill if he still needs to get hard on.
No, I don't need no pill. LSU, Alabama at night, Death Valley, SEC football. It's the best football in the land. I don't. Yep. Give me LSU, Alabama over any of that other shit that's on. Kansas State, TCU will be good, but.
It'll be an upset.
Wow.
Upset.
I'm leaning LSU, but.
Good. Hope they win.
Where's it at?
LSU.
Yeah, it could happen.
You know what? After what we've discussed with the SEC, Mississippi State, Arkansas, two offenses that struggled. I'm starting to think it was just shitty offenses after all these years. Good defenses, no doubt. Ole Miss, tremendous defense. Auburn put the boots to them pretty good. And Auburn's put the boots to Alabama last year pretty good. They'll do the same here this year. So I'm saying more times than not, maybe a shitty offense, 50-50, great defense.
That Auburn Ole Miss game though featured a lot of touchdowns back and forth.
A lot of turnovers.
They still scored.
Yeah, Ole Miss gave up plenty of opportunities close to their goal line.
Yes, they did.
Over the last 10 years, instead of bad offense, I'd say it'd be more like the NFL, and it was more just like unimaginative offense and too scared to take risks and chances. And after they saw Urban Meyer and Gus Malzahn do it, they said, oh, wow, it's a lot easier to win these games when you score 30 instead of when you only scored 17.
I'm making the comparison here. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they're the college versions of the Lions and the Cowboys, the collapse that is awaiting that everybody knows is going to come. So that'll be a lot of fun. Ole Miss already happened. They didn't even wait till fucking Black Friday for this to happen. So I appreciate them getting out of the way pretty soon. It's fun. It's fun to see Dallas every year shit themselves like a old man. It's just tremendous. And Detroit, whether it's now or whether it's in the wild card, it's going to be a good time. So I'm prepared for that. A new segment to the program, Mr. Stacken. If you are ready, I'd like to present Stacken.
Yes, I am.
Stacken's shitty kicker of the week. Plenty of candidates.
Yes. Yep. Wait, so we're doing it. We're kicking to the curb. That's going to be the name of the segment. And Fittingly,
wow.
the
We'll have to go to the
inaugural.
board of directors for that. We're going to the board of directors for that. I don't know.
Throwing amateur athletes under the bus.
Fittingly, and now, granted, I would love to be able to be a college kicker if only I were a decent enough athlete, if I was skilled enough. So I'm not trying to be harsh with these guys, but how can you not give the inaugural kicking the kicker to the curb award to Chris Blewitt of Pittsburgh for missing, a 23, 29-yard field goal, something like that. Regardless, Pittsburgh, golden opportunity to beat Duke. You blew it in more ways than one. The team, the kicker, up. So he gets the inaugural kicking to the curb award. Presented by, I don't know who, but we need a sponsor for that.
I think we need to get Riefenrath on the show to have him share his thoughts about how tough it is.
He'd win it every week, so let's...
Wow.
Wow, brutal.
Throwing SDSU guys under the bus, too.
Good. Very good. I enjoyed the Blewitt play because it kept the Duke Orange Bowl hopes alive. So if we can see Kansas in a Orange Bowl, we're going to see Duke in an Orange Bowl here. So it's either going to be
that was Kansas versus Wake Forest. We're never seeing that again.
God no. God no.
I think it was Kansas, Virginia Tech. I think it was Louisville and Wake Forest that were in
That's right.
the Orange
Even
Bowl the year
worse.
before.
You don't want two powers like that playing every year, so you got to separate them. It's either going to be Clemson or Duke, the number 2 team in the ACC in the Orange Bowl. So either way we win. If it's Clemson, we're waving that flag, and if it's Duke, go Bulls.
I'm also going to say that with the rankings coming out Tuesday nights at 6:30, Mr. Kriens, you come on the sports block about that time, so we will have instant analysis and we'll break down the new rankings each and every week on the sports block on 90.7 KSDJ and KSDJRadio.com.
So it's a great new addition. They got some great new music there.
I got a commercial on there too, so kudos to the KSDJ staff.
Shit.
So,
holy shit! Can we get a commercial for this show on that show?
We could certainly try if they would let us air the show, but there are way too many of George Carlin's 7 deadly words said on the show that I think we would see a significant bleeping. It would lose its effect.
Fuck them.
In regards to the Duke and Clemson, just to bring this college football talk full circle, I think we can all agree that Duke's probably not going to beat Florida State in the ACC title game. Hope they do, but it probably won't happen. Would anything seem, and I hate saying this because I do like Clemson, but the way the last few years have worked out, would anything seem more Clemson-like than Clemson knowing Duke's going to lose, ready to go to the AC or go to the Orange Bowl, and then losing to Steve Spurrier in South Carolina to get that third loss, enabling Duke to go instead?
That would be the difference, you think?
I think you'd have to take a 2-loss Duke team over a 3-loss Clemson team.
Yeah, that's all.
I mean, that's long now.
And
why would two teams go to the? Why would 2 teams be in the playoff in the ACC? Playoff bowls.
No, the number 2 team in the ACC is automatically in the Orange Bowl.
Why does the Orange Bowl do that? That's terrible.
They're shitheads. Because there's quality teams. There's quality teams in the Orange Bowl, obviously. In the ACC.
I agree with you, Trexler, but that's the way they're doing it this year.
That's bad. That's a bad decision by the Orange Bowl.
That's good for our squad. It's good for our squad.
Before too long, they'll be like the Fiesta Bowl, laundering money because they had to take all these bad teams year after year.
I like
shipping canisters of Ebola to third world terrorist countries.
And you also have an Orange Bowl affiliation here with Notre Dame. I don't know what the triggers are for that, 9, 10 wins, whatever. So,
if they have an option, they'll take Notre Dame.
So you can see a Clemson Notre Dame or a Duke Notre Dame. So there you go. And
I thought the Big Ten had some sort of thing with them.
With the Orange Bowl?
I think the Big Ten, it's like the Big Ten is supposed to go to the Orange Bowl like 4 times in the next 10 years or something like that. So I don't think they can start doing it whenever they want.
Yeah, the only affiliation here with any of these bowl games, the big ones, the ACC has to send somebody to the Orange Bowl, and the Orange Bowl has to pick either Notre Dame, a Big Ten team, or an SEC team. So So I would say the SEC probably.
So really,
gets
all we have to hope for.
Yes.
All we have to hope for is that Florida State loses, and then Florida State goes to the Orange Bowl, and that's the only SEC team in there.
Good.
I'd like to see Clemson go.
Good. And when it comes to this playoff, Florida State going to play a quality team. I don't know how many people are going to pick them to win the whole thing, and same goes for Mississippi State if they get there. I think those are two teams that are playing with fire, and they're going to get burned by the fire they are playing with. So there you go. College football in the bag. Something that Traxler brought up, which I thought was interesting. South Dakota State football, they do not have a post-game call-in show, nor do I think they're getting one anytime soon. And if anyone were to put one on, it would be an outside group that's not affiliated with Jackrabbit Athletics. Why would they not want to put something like that on? They've had great success in football, unprecedented success last 2-3 years. New facilities abound. What do you think if a outside group came in, which they could, and put something on the radio, and a call-in 30 minutes an hour, whatever, after every South Dakota State football game?
Well,
Are you implying that we should go?
Should we do that?
Maybe we should. I don't know how we would do that, but maybe we should be doing that.
How do you think they would react?
They wouldn't like it.
Why would they not like it? They've had great success. They've won 8, 9, 10 games here a season. They've made the playoffs. They've won playoff games. They've hosted playoff games. They're getting a new stadium. They're getting a new indoor facility. Why would they not like people calling in saying, by God, great running back, great quarterback, great coach?
Mainly because I don't think they like people criticizing play calling or.
Oh, people would call in to criticize. Is that right?
Yes. It wouldn't be the most positive.
Is that what people do on call-in shows?
That's what I've heard. I've never listened to one myself, but.
Well, there's a lot of 8, 10, 12, whatever the affiliate numbers are for radio stations across the state here. So obviously they're probably not going to put one on, because if they would, they'd get a call from somebody in the office with a 4-letter last name, and they'd say, hey, take the show off the air, or you're not getting our football games. I think it would go something like that. But if someone else, a radio station that is not a part of the network, so to speak, would do something like that, do you think you would get an email? Do you think you would get contacted? What do you think would happen?
Well, here's what I know. I mentioned that I thought USD did it, and maybe they have in the past, but I don't think they are anymore. I know Nebraska has one, and I know the Gophers have one. I don't remember how long the Nebraska one is, but I think the Gophers is only a half hour or an hour at the most.
I'm pretty sure the Nebraska one is multiple hours long.
Yes.
Do you think the Bison have one?
I don't know. I've never looked into the NDSU. I would guess that they probably would have one. So there's other schools that put them on, and they're school sanctioned, if you will. I don't know. It just seems like SDSU of all the schools, it seems the most insulated to wanting any sort of criticism. They want to avoid it at all costs. I don't know. It seems like if you want to, I think it would maybe help build the fan base a little bit too, to have people actually have an investment, given that a lot of these games are on TV, if nothing else. So
you would think there is a market for that. People would be interested.
I think there is. I think their fan base has never been bigger than it is right now. And it seems like there's an appetite out there. I was, I watched the game yesterday. I thought that it kind of lended itself to that. Not necessarily in a bad way, because I thought the Jacks actually played pretty well in the first half, and they were just not as good as NDSU. And I don't know what it was that made me think of that, but I thought that it would be entertaining. And SDSU doesn't do entertaining. They just do dry, boring television.
There's a radio station in the basement of the Union there. Maybe they could do something like that.
Yeah.
They should.
That's not my say.
Why not?
I don't know. I do carry some weight around there. I think
You
they
carry
will.
some weight. You put.
In all honesty, they said that they're going to start broadcasting some more basketball games this year.
Good.
And I might be a part of the pre and post game coverage of games and get on at halftime. So we'll see what happens there.
Good.
But I haven't heard any more on this yet.
Keep prodding, pushing, and asking. Say, God damn it, get something done.
I don't know if Nate Weck would be the broadcaster though.
I doubt
Oh
it.
boy, I don't know. He's pretty high up on the food chain. The NBA season started this past week. LeBron James, I don't know if you've heard, he's back in Cleveland. He decided to sign a contract kind of under...
Shut the front door. Is he really?
It was kind of under the disguise of night, kind of a hush-hush thing, but he did go back to Cleveland on a 2-year contract. So playing the last couple years of his career, I'm sure he'll retire after this contract. Only 2 years. Doesn't have much left in the tank, only in his late 20s. But they lost to the New York Knicks, your 7th seed in the playoffs coming up here, before beating the Chicago Bulls in overtime the next night on Friday. LeBron James said before the home opener, this is probably one of the biggest sporting events that's up there ever. Would you agree with that?
No, he's trying to market his own brand. Shut up, LeBron. It was not. It was maybe one of the biggest sports moments in Cleveland, but not in all of sports.
Maybe you should have added that little detail.
Yeah.
Maybe the biggest in the city, the biggest ever. So
I'm still not convinced he's not trying to lose on purpose and really troll Cleveland fans.
That'd be funny. That'd be fine with me.
It'd be funny, yeah, if they have an okay regular season, they get like the 3 seed in the playoffs, and they go out in the semis. That would be something.
You checked out.
I would say just have them average 22 a game, and then oh geez, and I'm blanking on and the trade deadline. Demand to trade.
Him.
Be like, no, I'm going to the Lakers. Trade me at the trade deadline.
What if Cleveland went to LeBron and say, we're trading you to Detroit? Or trade him?
Trade him to Milwaukee.
If this was wrestling, that's how it would go down. We're trading you to Milwaukee.
It's the stimulus package that Detroit needs. Get it done, Rick Snyder.
We really need Josh Smith and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, so we need to make this move.
Biggest story, week 1 in NBA season, Kriens, I think Russell Westbrook breaking his finger out at
What are
least
you doing? What are you doing trying to bring actual discussion to this program? What are you doing here?
I don't know.
I would agree. Yeah. What?
Perhaps the biggest overreaction is everyone climbing on the Anthony Davis for MVP bandwagon after one game.
2. I mean, Anthony Davis.
No, but after the first game. After the first game, everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's like the second coming of, the Messiah or something." I mean, he's just great for basketball. He's going to lead the Pelicans to another record that won't get them to the playoffs.
Really
yeah,
just he's done better than I thought he would. He's got a jump shot. Defensively, he's been unbelievable through 2 games.
He's very good.
No. What?
He's very.
Yes.
I just think there's a slight overreaction in people instantly jumping him up. Let's see him sustain this. Let's see. It's kind of like with Kevin Love. Let's see you get to the playoffs and do something in the playoffs, and stay healthy. I don't think he's been healthy for a full 82 games in either year of his
that is correct.
brief NBA career. So let's see that versus just one game, and then let's raise the all high and mighty on him.
That's fair enough. Injury prone a little bit. Where would you put Davis in your ranking of NBA players? Is he in your top 5, top 10? Does he crack the top 100?
No, he's top 10.
Top 5.
Um,
Close.
I think it'd be close. I'd have to look through everything here. Probably put LeBron, obviously 1, KD 2.
Katie Lingle too. Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking Katy Perry, but you know
Katy
what?
Perry 3.
Yeah. Throwing those corn dogs takes a lot of talent.
It does. As you mentioned, the Westbrook broken hand. Durant was bad enough, but I think this is a serious problem here. You lose both of them for a month. I think as close as the West is, 2 through 7, I think this could affect playoff seeding here. You lose a 4, 5, 6 game difference here in the month, whatever it's going to be. Without those two, I think that's the difference between a 2 seed and maybe a 6 seed. Is that how you see it, or is this not a huge deal?
I don't know. I think that'll. It depends. I mean, if it's a month, he's going to miss what, maybe 10, 12 games.
12, 15 games, yeah.
12, 15 games, and that's what a fifth of the season. So that does hurt to a degree. I think if it's closer to a month and a half, 2 months, I think then you really start to panic in Oklahoma City about one kind of just floating there in the Western Conference. Maybe you're in the 9, 8 spot, and then once you get both Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook back, you can really jump up in there. I don't know. We'll have to see just how long these guys are out and how long it takes for them to get back in game form. I think there'll be more of an issue with Kevin Durant getting back in game form because of the broken foot versus just this broken finger that Westbrook's got. So, bottom line is, I don't know. I think if they miss a month, they'll be fine. Anything longer between a month and a half to 2 months, then I'd really start to worry.
Because you can win 50 games and still miss the playoffs. So
you can.
I mean, you have to play very, very well. Timberwolves, it was a good game versus Chicago. Probably should have won. They lose by 1 last night. Have you been watching any basketball? Thoughts last week? You watch a little bit to whet your appetite. You come back in February, 40 games in.
I've already watched more NBA basketball.
Oh yes, you're going to watch more this year. That's your Hanukkah resolution. You're going to watch more.
My as a Jew, it is my Hanukkah resolution.
Get a haircut every Halloween.
Yep.
Watch more basketball.
Yeah. No, I don't remember watching this much in the first week last year, so I'm already off to good pace. I think I've seen every, except I don't get NBA TV, so the NBA TV games are out. But I've seen a little bit of all the primetime games so far, and it was a real dagger for the Thunder. I am entertained by this Timberwolves team. I think that they're going to be young. They're going to make mistakes. I mean, obviously, Andrew Wiggins making a mistake when it really counted on Saturday against the Bulls, but I think half the players in the league would probably make the same mistake of fouling somebody in that scenario too. So I don't think he's completely at fault. I think they're going to be entertaining. I'm curious to see what Zach Levine's role is going to be, because I think he's probably the player that has the longest to go of those guys. Wiggins has impressed me a lot in just the 3 games the 2 games I've seen, the 3 games they played. And Thaddeus Young ended up. I just think some people might have thought that was just kind of a throw-in part of that trade, but he's going to be a good piece for the Wolves. They just have so much to build around, and I'm curious. Does anybody have any? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're so much deeper depth-wise than they were last year, since they got Wiggins and Thaddeus Young and Levine, and they got Rubio to the extension. It's quality depth.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that Mo Williams was even on the team.
He's very good. He's very good.
He's at least a competent point guard. He's played decent. Shabazz Muhammad, I mean, this is only his 2nd year, and as opposed to last year when he was really in the doghouse, I think Flip will let him loose a little bit more this season. So I think that's fun. And I don't know, it'll be fun. I'll just try to make a point of watching as much as I can between them and the Wild.
I will follow the NBA, like the scores and stuff. I will try not to watch anything except if it's on TNT, because I'm biased towards them.
But we do, I think we do.
The best.
Jeff Van
No. The better team
Gundy
is
might
Mike
get some
Tirico.
entertaining.
I like Tirico and
Hubie
Brown a lot more. But biggest things for me, one, the Bucks don't lose that game at Charlotte if Nate Wolters plays, and two, it's awesome to see the Lakers 0-4.
Wow.
The Lakers are not awesome. The Lakers are that's painful stuff to watch.
They're on TV a lot.
I'm saying it's awesome that they're 0-4. I'm not saying they're awesome.
It's not even. I can't even joke about it because they've just been so terrible. Like I mean, I like that they're not going to make the playoffs and that they're bad, but the way they're bad is uncomfortable. And
the Lakers remind me of like when the Cowboys in the late '90s all of a sudden started going like 4-12 and still had a lot of those guys. And you're just like, whoa, what happened? I mean, and it's kind of fun when they're bad, but you're like, this is really weird that they're this awful right now.
Who's the Quincy Carter of the Los Angeles Lakers? We're talking about bad Cowboys teams.
Nick Young.
Well, once Nick Young comes back, he's going to be like their second best player. That's the sad part.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, Nick Young can at least give you some scoring. As much as I think he's a moron, but he's going to at least give him something. And the fact that Kobe is still going to take his 25 shots a game.
Does he get out of there at some point in these next 2 years? Does he go somewhere else and say, okay, this is enough of this? Because how can he stay there if they're going to win 25 games a year? How does he stay there?
Money.
A lot of money.
I mean, he'll go. I think he'll go somewhere else because he wants out. He wants one more, whether that's Dallas or wherever the hell he's going to go. I think he's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I just sense that he's not willing to wait it out, and the Lakers are going to try to build quickly for him, but I just don't see it happening quick enough. I mean, I think that he's not terrible, but he's just not. He's not the Kobe Bryant we've gotten used to, and if he's not amazing, the Lakers just have no shot.
I think he'll still average 24, 25 a game, but it doesn't really matter as far as wins and losses go because they're still going to lose 20 points to good teams. So. Something that we thought we came up with, but something that's already been done here, the NBA World Title. You start with the team that won the championship last year. That's the Spurs. They're the title holder, and whoever beats them wins the belt, and you go on from there. So
just like boxing.
Just like boxing. So they defeated Dallas opening night, and they go on the road, lose versus Phoenix. On Friday, Phoenix turns around, holds the belt less than 24 hours. They lose to Utah. So Utah, now your NBA World Champions. Where do we think this is going to end? It's in the West right now. Utah, you don't expect Utah to hold on to this goddamn thing very, very long, so it's kind of bouncing around. Utah is at the Clippers on Monday night, so the Clippers should be your world champs coming up tomorrow night. Do you expect this thing to bounce around? The Clippers seem like a team that could hold on to it for a while. Does this interest you whatsoever?
It interests me a little bit. My guess is that the West has it for 75% of the season at least.
Should we get a belt made?
I think this should be like a real thing. When you consider that Adam Silver in his brief time has been very innovative, and he's talked about wanting to have an in-season competition. Similar to how soccer in Europe has domestic championships where you play a little tournament. I think this could be something. Like you give it out, whoever holds it the longest, there's some sort of award for them. But you want to have it at the end of the year, and I think that'd be great.
And it's something if you're the 76ers or the Bucks and it's the middle of April and you're not going to do anything, it's still something at least. You're playing a team that's got the belt that you beat earlier in the year. I mean, it's something. It's better than nothing.
NBAChampionshipBelt.com, where you can find the standings. They're tremendous. It started last year with the Miami Heat, the defending champions. It ended with the New York Knicks. They won 3 games in a row to win the title, and they kept it with a 3-point win versus the Raptors. So it came down to Raptors-Knicks for the title. It ends at the end of the regular season. So the Clippers likely title holder tomorrow night, and they've got a tough stretch at Golden State Wednesday. They host Portland, San Antonio with possibly a chance to win it back. So we're looking at maybe a Clippers title reign for 48 hours, and then Golden State gets a crack at it on Wednesday. So
Speaking of
the
Timberwolves,
professional wrestling, all of a sudden you got D'Lo Brown and Val Venus.
Boom.
There's a title on the line, and it means something.
It's the hardcore title. It's going to be defended anywhere at any time. Pickup games in airports. Your best guy versus my best guy. 1-on-1, 2-on-2. First one to 11 wins. 2 inside the arcs, 1 outside the arcs, 2. Let's ball it up. Now that's a thing. That's the thing that Adam Silver has to get done. As we wrap up the 90th edition, a lively edition of the Lounge, we got some hypothetical
The
questions.
Jason Pierre-Paul version.
Wow, look at you. 90th JPP.
hypothetical, not hyphenated.
Not a hyphenated question?
Yeah.
Did I say hyphenated?
No, I don't know why you brought up Jason Pierre-Paul, but...
Okay, I got you. Because he wears 90, I believe.
Okay, all right.
That's where we're going here, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks, Kriens. Yep, that's where I was going.
There we go. Got one here that I think's interesting. Let's say the way that you make money is simply by counting the money. It's not yours till you've actually counted it by hand, 1 bill at a time. It's your only source of income, and it's all $1 bills. How much money do you make per year? Per day? Per week? How much?
All right, I don't get this. I'm supposed to... Just any money I come across, I count it, it's mine?
No, you're just given...
I think the idea is you go to your job at this location where they just have a limitless amount of $1 bills, and however many you count, that's how many you get to go home with at the end of the day. Correct?
Yes, that would be correct. That's a correct synopsis on this.
I missed it because my connection...
I will work every... I don't know if I'm working every day of the year. Okay, my understanding is it's essentially like you show up at, Bank Incorporated or Company Incorporated, and there's some room where they just have a limitless amount of $1 bills. And however many you sit there and manually count, they say you have done your work. That is how many ones you get to take home at the end of the day. So if you count 100 ones, then you get to go home with $100. I will probably not work every day. I will probably work 300 days a year and will count $1,000 each day and make $300,000 before taxes.
Very nice. See, that's some good math right there.
Yeah, I would say if I was spending my whole day on it.
8 hours. 8 hours a day. Go 8 hours. Or what do you want to do? As much as you want.
If I spend 8 hours.
I would assume that you can just work however long you want to. That you don't have to. I mean, you could work 2 hours and go home after that if you wanted.
Sure.
If you could count that fast.
I would count $2,000 or $2,500 every time I'm in a day, and take that. And I would say similarly to Charlie, I'd work 275 days or 300 days a year, and that'd be good enough for me.
It says here if you work 1 8-hour day per week, and if you count 1 bill per second, if that's a sustainable rate, you'd earn $28,000 a day. That's
I don't see that being a sustainable rate.
How about?
You could do it for a while, but yeah, I don't think you could. I mean, I don't know.
That's $1.5 million a year. So maybe you knock it off. Maybe you can make $1 million a year.
If I count $2,500 a day for 275 days, I make $687,000. $687,500 a year.
That's doable.
That's doable.
before taxes.
Unless we're doing all this off books, then it's a whole different scenario.
Right.
As much as you can, much as you can want. There you go. We'll have a.
I don't know. Maybe you spend 4 hours and you count to like 5,000 each day. 5,000. That would be 2,500 a week. And I don't want to grab my calculator, but you could make quite a bit.
Well, I mean, I'm counting money. I don't want to do it till I'm crazy. Because that would defeat.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is you wouldn't want to do it for 8 hours every single day. Actually, the more I think about it, you'd want to do it like Kriens, where you'd want to just do it one day a week and have like one bad day that you spend like 6 or 7 hours doing it as much as you can, and then you say, okay, I'm taking the next 6 days off.
I feel like I have to sit down and actually do it for 6 or 7 hours so I know how long it takes me to. I have no idea how long it would take me to count out as many.
Yeah, these numbers could be wrong. Like if you do 1 second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you can sustain that for a couple minutes, $25,000 a day, something like that, you could take a week off. You don't have to do it.
True. Yeah.
You could be trying to beat Ari ad dropping players all the time.
Ari would be Sometimes you wonder if is he getting $1,000 for every guy he drops?
He's probably a hand model. This is his extra time doing this, which I am in danger of dropping to Mr. Boynton here this week. It's a close
getting
contest.
Throttled, by the way. I left Asiata on the bench, and I'm getting throttled.
I think my new idea is I would spend 10 hours, 6 days a week, counting as much money as I could, saving it for as long as I could, to start my own political action committee to end political commercials on television. Just make them. You can't do it anymore. They're done forever.
Here's my 30-second ad of nothing. I just bought this space so nobody else could buy it, and you can. I'm taking this 30 seconds to just give you some peace and quiet.
Are you going to miss the ads? The final day is coming up here. Are you going to record these on DVR and play them back in the middle of January?
I think so. Yeah.
Never. Don't worry. The 2016 presidential campaign ads will be running here in a month.
I have to go. Thank you for letting me join the show.
We appreciate your time.
Yes.
It's the 90th edition of the Sports Lounge. All right, you want one more hypothetical, or you're saving for next week? Have we gone?
Save for next week. How come we aren't talking Vikings today?
What do you think about them Vikings? The defense, again, they made a stop. They
did.
You've been You've been asking for it.
Oh, Charlie even left too. What the hell?
Nobody wants the Vikings. Okay.
Well, it's good to be 4-5. I will say this is where I had them going into the bye week.
So close. One second away, literally 1 second away.
Yep. The only difference I had flipped. I had them losing to Atlanta and beating Buffalo. That's where the fortunes have turned. But you know what? They've beaten the teams that they should. They're not great, and Teddy's got to put some touch on his passes. Goodness gracious. I mean, Cordero Patterson couldn't be more wide open. But this team is headed in the right direction. I love the blitzing. They keep getting after the quarterback. You just got to wrap up a little more, but I give them a 50-50 shot to go into Chicago in 2 weeks and beat the Bears.
That's a big game because after that you got 3 at home. You have a tough one at home versus Green Bay, but then after that you have 2 very winnable games at home versus Carolina and versus the Jets. Where do you see this team? 4 games from now.
4 games from now, I see them.
Do they go 2-2, 3-1, 1-3?
Yeah, I think they go 2-2. So I see them 6-7.
6-7. Okay.
Yep. And then I think there are 3 winnable games at the end there, at Detroit, at Miami. Miami's a good team. I thought they'd be dog shit this year. They have really exceeded my expectations. I gave them 4 wins at the beginning of this year. I gave the Bills 4 wins. I gave the Jets 4 wins. I have the Jets pegged right, I think.
You knew that. I told you that wasn't going to happen. You weren't going to have. No. You obviously knew that was not going to.
No. But the Jets at least are living up to those expectations.
Yeah. But I will say with the Jets, in defense of the Jets, the close games have not gone their way. They have struggled in the
True.
games. They lost at Green Bay by 7. That pass late in the game there that got called back because of the timeout. They lost versus Detroit by 7, versus Chicago by 8. They lost at New England by 2. So they've had very, very close games here. But they are a mess. They are a terrible mess.
Did you see that Fasano catch today?
I did not.
He's on his butt. Oh, go to NFL.com, look at it. Yeah, for the Chiefs. Outstanding catch. It basically summed up the Jets season in that one play.
The Raiders almost beat Seattle. At Seattle.
Yeah.
Oakland,
I don't get it.
I mean, Oakland's not winning a game here for a long time. I think they're in danger here of going 0 for the season. I really don't see more than 2 wins because they're versus Denver. They host Denver next week. That's a loss. They're at San Diego. Mm-hmm. That's a loss. Apparently they play.
Not with the way the Chargers have been playing lately.
Well, I mean that's at San Diego. I mean they're going to be 0-10 before hosting Kansas City. So do we got to pay attention here? 0-16. Is this worth paying attention?
No, I think they're a slightly better team than the 0-8 record shows. Not by much, but they are a little better than this. Offensively, they're a mess, in part because they have a rookie quarterback, Derek Carr. Their running backs are old or can't stay healthy. And can you name a wide receiver on that team? I can. It's James Jones, but that's about it. They just don't have a lot. Defensively, I think they're actually pretty decent. Look what they did to the Seahawks today. Seattle didn't have that many yards. Russell Wilson struggled.
Russell Wilson. You know how I feel about Seattle, but Russell Wilson, I mean, it just doesn't do it for me. Very, very fortunate early on to have a great defense. You don't need to do much.
No. Their best chance at a win was Week 1 against the Jets.
Yeah.
And
that's the only game the Jets have won.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm just looking at their schedule here, and I'm going to give them the Rams
on the road
and the Chiefs. Week 12 and Week 13, those are the 2 best opportunities for them to pick up wins here.
So if they get past that and they still don't have any wins, then we can start talking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What do you make of this AFC North? Everybody's at 5-3. You got the Bengals at 5-2-1. You got the winner of tonight's Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, which I'm sure will be a 3-point game at the end, like it is every single time they play. Cleveland, very impressed with Cleveland. How do you see this coming out? The Bengals seem to have the advantage here.
With Cleveland, they have had the last 3 games, everyone said, these are winnable. They should win them easily if we want to take them to be legit. They got blown out against Jacksonville. They kind of creeped by Oakland last week, and this week they were in a dogfight with the Bucs. I don't know how legit this team is. I think they are headed in the right direction, and I believe I said it either I believe I told you this a year or 2 ago. I said that
to make some noise. You
in
like
Cincinnati.
Yeah, you've been on Cincinnati.
So they're doing it. I don't think Pittsburgh can sustain their offensive explosiveness that they've shown the last 2 weeks. Baltimore, they seem a little inconsistent to me. I think the Bengals still win the North, but honestly, the Ravens are in a bit of a difficult spot here because they're playing their 5th division game of the year already, and it's Week 9. So a lot of the rest of the season's somewhat out of control for them in terms of who beats up on who in the division. I don't know. I'm going to give the edge to the Bengals. They have swept the Ravens, so that certainly helps. But who would have thought that the battle for Ohio, Week 10, NFL Thursday Night Football on the NFL Network would be as big of a game as it is. I mean, this is for first in the AFC North.
It is a shame that is a Thursday night game, and they don't get a full week for a game of importance, but that sucks. So,
yeah. And good news for Vikings, just to kind of wrap it up here, since I know we extended this a little bit longer as everyone ducked out. Vikings Bears in 2 weeks got flexed to CBS.
You son of a
Still
bitch.
At noon.
Oh no!
But
really?
This
news?
Is great because I think it was posted earlier today on the Vikings website, but they are flexing it to CBS, which is awesome for the Vikings because it guarantees that they get some good announcers. I'll take Spiro Ditas and Solomon Wilcots over anybody that's not Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, or Kenny Albert, or Tom Brenneman that Fox throws out. Chris Myers wasn't bad today, but I'm excited for the possibility that the CBS team will be good. Even Kevin Harlan is great. He used to be the voice of the Timberwolves, so he's very familiar with the Vikings and everything. I am very anxious for 2 weeks to get an added game on CBS.
You were against this flex schedule, CBS Fox. Now you like this. You like this move.
Well, in part because of the announcing team. I still don't kind of get it. You know, there always used to be a pattern. NFC team plays NFC team. It's always on Fox. If NFC hosts an AFC team, it's on CBS. If AFC hosts an NFC team, it's on Fox. And, of course, AFC versus AFC is CBS. So they've confused me with what they're doing now. I don't think it really matters who the teams are or what network is supposed to be broadcasting which conference. But I am, given the crap announcing teams that Fox has shoved down our throats so far through the first half of the season, it will be refreshing to get an added game on CBS.
Better announcers, a better presentation overall. I would agree with that. Next week, kind of like we did with the college football playoff, I'm thinking maybe because we haven't talked a lot of NFL, we're halfway through the season here, maybe we can make some revised picks, kind of go over what's happened thus far in the season. Why is Arizona so good? I don't know. Only thing I can come up with, they don't turn the ball over. Offense isn't.
They got lucky. I was just gonna say they got lucky by not going against Tony Romo today and going against Brandon Weeden. But they are a legit team. If I may. If I may.
Okay.
I'm just grabbing because I have all the picks right here. And
from the preseason?
From the preseason.
Okay. And
I actually had them beating Dallas in Dallas. I had the Cardinals through 8 games at this point in the season, 6-2. Now, unfortunately, I have them losing 5 of their final 6 games because they are going against the division, and that is going to be difficult for them. Now, I have them losing to Atlanta at the end of November. That I think will be adjusted. But I'm looking at these picks here, and I haven't been off on too many of these teams.
Yeah, we can get that ready for next week. We can recap that and kind of teams you were off on, teams you're right, good on pace to get fairly right. I think they win their next 2 at home versus the Rams and Detroit. That would put them at 9-1 in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. So maybe they get home field advantage. You never know. And
quickly on San Francisco losing to St. Louis today, yeah. I don't know how good they are going to be with their defensive players coming back. I think that will certainly help the 49ers. They get Aldon Smith back. He might be back for next week's game against New Orleans. Patrick Willis missed today's game. So they will get some added pieces back that should help the defense. But this is the fall that I kind of saw for them. So if people are going to say, oh, San Francisco 4-4, that's such a surprise, they are such a Jekyll and Hyde team that this does not surprise me one bit.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised.
What surprises me, how do you only get 10 points against the Rams? The Rams had like 10 sacks against Kaepernick today, and they had 0 pass rush the entire season. So, in all actuality, the Rams should have swept the 49ers this year. So,
yeah.
I will give a solid kudos to the Rams on this one. Just since we're looking at San Francisco here, I had them at looks like 5-3, so through 8 games. So I'm 1 off with them.
They are at New Orleans next week. That seems like a loss. It seems like Seattle or San Francisco, one of them is out making the deal here. One of them is missing out. And a lot of people don't like San Francisco.
And the AFC, much better conference than we thought they would be.
Yeah, I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at the moment at 5-3, tied for the final 2 wild card spots. So that is, I enjoy that. And you got teams like Buffalo and Cleveland and Miami that haven't had success or haven't been in there in a while. So it's good to see them playing meaningful games late. That's fun. And the Vikings are still in the playoff race here. That win versus Buffalo would have been big. That would have put them a half game out of that 6th seed. So should be a lot of teams here still in it the last couple of weeks of the season. So that's all I ask, is to play competitive games that mean something week 16, week 17.
Yep, and there was a column on NFL.com about 10 teams you could stick a fork into, and the columnist who did this, the writer for NFL.com, put the Vikings on there and said had they beat Buffalo, he would not have put them on the list, but they are there because of it. So, really, the AFC has proven us wrong this year. We can get into this more next week, but the NFC South is garbage, and
I like New Orleans to come out of there. Preseason and now,
yep.
I think New Orleans.
But they aren't nearly as good as we were expecting. Of course, I saw Atlanta as a playoff team.
Yep.
Injuries have really destroyed their offensive line. Defensively, they aren't much to write home about either. Carolina, I saw this decline. Tampa, I thought, would be far more competitive under Lovie Smith. But, we get into this more next week. But definitely some surprises out there.
I mean, that was a big game today. New England, Denver, really didn't see it. But as far as the 1 seed goes, that's a huge game.
Picked that one wrong. I thought Denver would go in and lay down a beating in New England.
And next week, we'll go through the second half of the NFL season. Also, we're looking forward to college football this week, so plenty on tap. And we'll also see who the NBA World Champion is at this time. Maybe the Clippers, maybe Golden State, Portland, maybe San Antonio gets a second rate.
Milwaukee, give them a shot.
We'll see. We'll see if Milwaukee gets a shot at the title. So that's something interesting to look at if you have don't give a shit about a game between 2 teams. Maybe like Jazz Suns. Who could care about Jazz Suns last night? But because the title was on the line, it's a game you pay attention to. See who the title holder is. So for Mr. Traxler, for Mr. Hildebrand, for Mr. Stacken, I'm Mr. Kriens. 91st edition Sports Lounge coming up next week.